Okay. Okay, happy week 18, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. I don't know how many people are going to be here, to be honest. Let me tweet this out simply because I know there's an NFL game going on that is probably far more interesting, although it doesn't appear to be all that exciting. It looks like the Cowboys are going to start benching some players here in a minute. We'll go for about an hour. This probably is our last show of the year, if I'm being honest. I don't know that we'll go through the playoffs. My hair is an absolute disaster, but that's par for the course. I'm not 100% sure we're going to go into the playoffs. I need to see the schedule and see how the sites are planning to offer contests, etc. But we're here and going to answer your questions for, I don't know, an hour, 45 minutes, however long you guys have questions for. We will answer them. So let me just pull up some things really quickly and make sure I have everything that I need, and then we'll get started. Okay. Hey, Kurt, how's it going? So starting off with quite the question. So who are my must plays on DraftKings this week? It's an interesting week, and we'll talk about wide receivers, I'm sure, most of the night. But I'm at the moment playing Cooper Kupp over Jonathan Taylor on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'm playing Jonathan Taylor over Cooper Kupp, and it really comes down to two things. One, if I think about Kupp, I think, the full PPR certainly helps on DraftKings. I think he's, we'll say, more likely, I think, to get to over 100 yards. He has 90 yards or more in each of his last, I don't know, basically every game this season. Taylor certainly is going to probably hit 100 too, but the issue I have with Taylor is he doesn't catch passes. How many has he caught in the last several weeks? But hasn't been a lot. I know heading into last week he hadn't caught any for like 3 or 4 straight games. I'm pulling up his stats right now. He has one catch over his last 4 games. 2 of those games he didn't even have a target. So, on FanDuel it's not that big of a deal, but on DraftKings, 108 yards and a touchdown, not great. 19 points. It's fine. But we look against the Cardinals, he had 108 yards, no receptions. It's 13.8. For his price, it's too expensive. Right. So Cooper Kupp, at minimum, let's say he has 6 catches, which he's going to have more than that. But just for sanity point, clarity, whatever the word is, I can't even speak. It's week 18, everyone. Just for that purpose, I think that having Kupp have a 6 reception lead to start the day is basically starting with a touchdown that Taylor's going to need multiple on DraftKings. Other plays on DraftKings that I like this week. I'm playing at the moment. I'm playing at quarterback. I keep flip-flopping. I'm going to either Tyler Huntley or Taysom Hill. As of right now, I have Tyler Huntley at 5.7K. I saved $500. I think Huntley has rushed for 40 yards or more in each of his games as a starter. He did have that two rushing touchdown performance earlier this season. Taysom Hill surprisingly only has 1 game as a starter where he has a rushing touchdown. So most of his rushing touchdowns have come elsewhere. So come as the goal line type player. So that's the route I'm going. At quarterback, at running back, I talked a little bit about who I'm not playing, but let's talk about who I am playing. So I think Cam Akers news, I think, is going to be sort of dependent. I think Sony Michel could be interesting. The James Conner news, I think, is going to be interesting for a lot of people. It looks like Akers is going to play, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen the latest there, but I think Keyshawn Vaughn, although that could be a trap, and then Devin Singletary obviously is a very good play going up against the Jets. And then I'm sure we'll talk about more throughout the show. But if I don't answer it, Kurt, you know where to find me. Yeah, it's a good question, John. I think that it's a tough one because Ronald Jones is out. Great. But he was also out-snapped by Le'Veon Bell last week. Not great. But if I look at Keyshawn Vaughn, right, I sort of think, okay, what if this Ronald Jones, it's like an ankle injury? They sort of need to figure this out because can Keyshawn Vaughn be the guy? Are they comfortable with him? So I think he gets the first crack. His price is simply, I mean, it's a really strong price. So I tend to think I'm okay with it. I certainly have him in my lineup as we stand today, just because there's not that much value out there, right? So if I want to play Jonathan Taylor and I want to play Justin Jefferson on FanDuel because his price is pretty good, it makes it tough. You almost, I think you have to. If you're playing Jonathan Taylor, you sort of have to go with that second tier of running backs in like a Devin Singletary and a Keyshawn Vaughn to make a lineup work that you're actually comfortable with. Certainly punting at tight end, punting on defense, and then wide receivers, you're sort of filling in the gaps on that low six, like a Christian Kirk or who else is in that range? Let's see, shall we? Low six wide receivers. Christian Kirk. You could go Tyler Boyd. I think he's too risky. More of a GPP play. Russell Gage is down at 5'7", who I sort of like. Chase Claypool is going to be popular. And then going up just a little bit, you know, Darnell Mooney had 13 targets last week. He's going to get some love. And then Michael Pittman, obviously, outside of the game that he got ejected against New England, he's been very good. So Marquise Brown is popping on a couple different sites. I don't see that one happening. I'm not saying it can't, but with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, he hasn't topped 50 yards in each of his last 4 games. Yeah, he hasn't topped it in 4 straight games. So he's just not a guy that Huntley is not a guy that's going to be throwing it deep to Brown. He's using him underneath. So best value tomorrow, I think it's Devin Singletary, to be honest. He's the guy that I have the most of, although that sort of worries me because it's hard to predict for him. Really depends on the site, though. If I look at FanDuel, sort of depends on what happens with Kyle Pitts, too, because if Kyle Pitts were to somehow scratch, then Russell Gage becomes a great play. But there's a lot of just not a ton of value. To be honest, there's not like that one guy that you have to have. Keyshawn Vaughn, we talked about a little bit earlier. Good play. I think he provides some salary relief for sure. But is he a must play? No, you can certainly build a lineup without him. I do think at the moment going cheap at quarterback is the way to go. I understand that people are gonna gravitate towards Josh Allen. I get it. It's not for me though. Simply because if you look at his last like 8 games, 4 of those games he's been highly, highly disappointing. So I know the matchup against the Jets is good, but I can't pay that price. He's not cheap enough for his recent inconsistency. Now he has yo-yoed bad game, good game, bad game, good game, bad game, coming off of that bad game where he had 3 interceptions. So does that mean anything? Is it predictive? No. Is it a fun narrative? Yeah. You're in a FanDuel league that adds to cumulative single entry scores. Interesting question. Interesting question. So it depends. It depends how far back you are. If you're really far back, then you may want to consider actually fading those guys, because you have to figure that the person in first place is going to probably take at least one of those. I think almost every lineup on FanDuel and in smaller leagues, you have to consider that people are going to take at least one of those 2 guys. So what does that mean? Well, if you're really far back, you basically need whatever one they pick to struggle. So I would almost think that if you want the most upside and you're basically just going for broke, you say, look, I'm just going to fade Jonathan Taylor. Or you could fade Cooper Kupp. I don't think Kupp's floor is as low as Taylor's, but you could certainly go Justin Jefferson. You could go Justin Jefferson, who I think has the same upside as Cooper Kupp. He has 4 or 5 games above 140 yards. So I do think that there's certainly an opportunity there. And at the running back position, if you just say, look, I'm not going to go Taylor. I'm going to go, I'm going to go Dalvin Cook. And I know that those guys are on the same team, or I'm going to go Najee Harris, or I'm going to go Nick Chubb, or David Montgomery is certainly a great value there too. But I actually think fading both could be a strategy that works. And you just say, look, I'm going for broke, and I'm assuming that one of those guys is going to be owned by the guy. I'm going to go completely different. I want to make sure that every one of my players has a ton of upside that is not going to be rostered by this guy. Go high at the quarterback position. Go to tight end and spend up to like a Mark Andrews. If you really want to just get creative, it depends how far back you are. If you're only like 5 or 10 points back, you probably don't want to do that. But if you need to capture a gap of like 30 or 40 points, yeah, I think that you probably need to just go completely different. You have quite a bit of Jamison Crowder on DraftKings. Well, it's the right site if you're going to play Jamison Crowder. But let me see where I have him. I haven't even considered him that strongly this week, but certainly, I mean, with all the players on all the different sites, there's always guys that you're going to miss. But I have him at about 2% rostered, but I do have him at about 2.5 times his expected value. So could he be interesting? Sure. Right? I mean, he has just as much of a chance to reach value as Cyril Grayson or Marvin Jones, who are going to be more popular than him in that range. I don't know why Antoine Wesley is popping, but I wouldn't go there. Now, most of the people are going to go with one of Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, Devontae Parker. So I do think it's different, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad play. Do you play Perryman or Lazard instead of Higgins? Because since he's sitting a ton of starters, are they, Kurt? I haven't seen anything outside of we're not playing Joe Burrow. Outside of that, I haven't seen anything. So do you play Perryman or Lazard over Higgins? DJ Reader's also out, I think. I think they're resting him. Perryman, Lazard, or Higgins. Man, that's tough. Don't like any of them, to be honest. Yeah, I don't certainly wouldn't go Lazard. So maybe I would because he could sit too. Um, if you're going to sit Adams, if you're going to sit Rogers, why not just sit Lazard and just run the ball or go with your fourth or fifth string receivers? So the question is, do you play Brashad Perryman over him? Yikes. There's nobody else. I, I'd probably just stick with Higgins at that point and hope in his first couple drives he gets something. Appreciate it, Dan. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was a good year this year. We crushed it. So you're targeting the Vegas Chargers game. I think that's the game to. I think it's a great game to target. Herbert, Jacobs, Renfro, Allen, Eckler. I think it's too much. I think there's games out there that I think it's too much. So I typically don't like to go more than 4. Occasionally I'll go 5. I think 6 is too much. You're really going to need it to be 38, 35, which if you believe it is, more power to you, buddy. But I think it's only 5. I typically don't like going more than 4. I mean, at most I'll go quarterback, 2 receivers, or quarterback, running back, receiver, and then a receiver on the other side. I would take one of those guys out. Like Allen and Eckler kind of wash each other out, but if you think Herbert's going to throw 50 times a game, then maybe you take Jacobs out and repurpose Jacobs. Thoughts on Saquon and DraftKings GPPs? Hopefully this is the last time we have to answer Saquon questions for a while. He looked good last week. I'm admittedly a Saquon hater, but certainly at 6,100, he's going to be vastly overlooked. My problem is, do I see a world where he outperforms Sony Michel, assuming no Akers, Devin Singletary, even Eli Mitchell or Deontay Foreman? I love Deontay Foreman, by the way, this week. I think the Titans run and run and run and run as they get ready for Derrick Henry to return. Do I think he's going to outscore any of those guys? Probably not, to be honest. Even James Conner up at 6,300. Jake Fromm, I just don't see moving the ball. So that's the problem. But he certainly, you could win a lot of money if Saquon has a big game. Who are the cheap wide receivers on FanDuel? We talked about it a little bit, but there's nobody really cheap. So the lowest that I would consider going this week, Russell Gage, Chase Claypool, maybe like Gabriel Davis, maybe. I think he's down at 5,200. So he's probably the guy that if you just wanted to say, you know what, I'm just punting the position or punting one spot to fill in maybe a Taylor and a Kupp lineup, that's probably the route that you would have to go. But it's slim pickings under 6K this week. No, Tyler Huntley, John. I think Jimmy's going to play, to be honest. I would go Tyler Huntley over Taysom Hill and take the savings. Michael Carter on DraftKings. Sure. 5K. Sure. I think he's fine. He's not like a must start, but I think he's fine. Somewhat of a tough matchup, although Buffalo's had their issues stopping the run. So Carter has shown his ability to have big games. He has a floor of like 4 points, but yeah. No, Tony, I don't think so. I think it's too risky. Boyd is a guy that he could have a monster game. I mean, don't get me wrong, but Boyd could also have like 3 for 24. And we don't know what they're going to do, right? If they play Jamar Chase and T. Higgins the entire game, you're sort of screwed. If Brandon Allen sucks, you're sort of screwed. So we know DJ Moore is going to at least get something. Do I love DJ Moore? No. The price on FanDuel is good, though. I don't play any of like the huge contests, so I play about 90% cash games. I won some 1,000-person tournaments, some 100-person tournaments, 500-person tournaments. Nothing crazy. I don't know what this means, so I don't know what that. If anyone knows what that means, like, otherwise I'm just gonna mark it as spam. I like. It's one of the stacks I like. To be honest, Liquid. I think Andy Dalton's in a decent spot, and I say that half jokingly, but Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Justin Fields, all through for like 280, 290 yards or more over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And apologies, I don't have the stat right in front of me, but Andy Dalton's every bit as good as those guys throwing the ball. Like, as a thrower, is he as good as Justin Fields? Yeah. Is he as good as Ben Roethlisberger? Probably. So I don't hate it, to be honest. I would definitely include Darnell Mooney, probably David Montgomery, and then I would run it back with Justin Jefferson, something like that. Got it. I blocked him. Dalvin Cook is absolutely viable. Absolutely, he's the pivot off of Jonathan Taylor. If you wanted to pivot off of him, so he's the guy that if you really wanted to say, hey, I think I need a running back who has upside, that would be the guy. I don't know, Brian. I don't know. The problem is, let me see if this has changed, but since looking up snap counts on Football Guys, which you guys aren't using that tool, it's, I think, by far the best tool in the industry for snap counts. I will share a link. So here's New Orleans. But if you look at Kamara, it has stabilized a little bit, but he's still only getting 74, 61, 60, and then 78, where early on in the season he was at 73, 84, 84, 87, 88. So the only reason he was up last week is because Mark Ingram was out. Mark Ingram, I don't know if he's hurt or he's questionable this week. So if he doesn't play, maybe, certainly almost no one is going to have him. I have him at like 6% rostered. So can we bank on a 6 touchdown game? Of course not. So realistically, he's fine, but I wouldn't value him because of that 6 touchdown game, if that makes any sense. Would I throw a dart at a Lions tight end tomorrow? I don't know that I can name a tight end on the Lions. Who is their tight end at the moment? Scrolling down my list. Is it Brock Wright? I have no idea who this guy is. Yeah, I think that answers the question. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something in Brock Wright, but yeah, he's probably not. I mean, No. He had 3 targets last week, but 4 yards. Yeah, it's not for me. Not for me. Okay. So maybe we'll cut this short. I don't know. Seems like everyone's focused on the game, which is completely understandable. So, and it's week 18, so you don't get season long people in here. I think everyone is fatigued a little bit. We'll go a couple more minutes. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, I can certainly take some time back and chill out a little bit. Maybe catch the tail end of this game. What do we got? Anything? Bueller? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I know it was short. Appreciate everyone coming out. I know that certainly listening to my dumb voice instead of an NFL game is a commitment, even if a few of you just joined. So I do appreciate everyone for showing up. Twitter link is our Twitter name is in the whatever this text box is. So if you have if you want any questions or anything, just hit me up and I'll certainly answer them. But thanks everybody. I don't know that we'll do this next week. If you want to have something next week, let me know. But it depends on the schedule. So if this is the last show of the year, thank you everyone. I appreciate it. I know that a lot of us have grown a little bit of a community here, so kind of cool to see this thing grow into like an idea that we just had and kind of grew a little bit. So, and I appreciate you, Tony. Thanks, man. Thank you, everybody. Good luck this week. Good luck in the playoffs. We'll talk to you at some point. Thanks.